right, good morning everybody. 40,000 mile update part 2. This video is being done in response to some questions that people had posed about having the car for 40,000 miles and just things that I hadn't addressed in the first video. And it's kind of funny because I actually had addressed pretty much all of these questions in the first video, but I reshot that video because it was 43 minutes long. It was ridiculous. Nobody would have watched it. So I had to, and I tried editing it down. It just didn't work. So I reshot that video. And so many of these questions, or I think all of them, were addressed in that first video, but I'm going to go back and answer some of them. Question number one that I get more than anything else, I think, when I talk about the miles I have on it, is, at least beyond what I talked about in the first video, is my charging habits. Now, I actually did a video on this very subject months ago, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 months back, but I've done hundreds of videos, and so I'll just re-answer that question. I drive about 160 miles a day. I have a typical 4-day work week, with my 5th day is sort of running errands and miscellaneous stuff, but I'm on the road 4 to 4.5 days a week, typically 160 miles a day, and then some weekend driving. And what I typically do is charge to 80%. So there's my max charge line, and which is right at 80%. So that's what I do nearly every day. There are times that I'll stop the charge at as little as 70%, and I do that mainly if I know for sure I only have a tiny bit of driving to do the next day, and the car is probably going to sit without being plugged in. So then I know I'll be driving it down to about 50% charge, and it's going to sit for a while. But typically I'll charge to 80%. Now, if I know I'm going to be doing a lot of driving the next day, I'll charge to 90. Only a couple times have I charged beyond 90%. So, and here's the thing, back when I posted my video about maxing out my charge at 80% most days, it was a video related to use and care of lithium batteries. I do some work in a little side business on super exotic electric bicycles and other small electric devices, and it's just something I've learned over the years, not to max out the charge and not to run the batteries down too far. Pretty much all lithium chemistries are sensitive to it, some more so than others. Well, I had a few people that disagreed with me on that video, and then Kim from Like Tesla had done a video where she had tweeted Elon, and Elon responded and basically said, don't be afraid to charge to 100%, it's fine. Well, then I got attacked. Elon said, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, Elon's a marketing guy. He's an engineer, but he is a marketing guy, and he has since backpedaled and said it's not good to charge to 100%. So it's a little annoying that I really got attacked, but I stuck to my guns, basically, that it's better for the battery to stop somewhere below 100%. Charging up to 90% daily is probably okay, but it is actually a little bit easier on the battery to stop even at 80%. And so that's what I've done for long-term longevity of my battery. Now, for those of you that don't know battery technology and think, well, why give a car 325 miles of range, but you can only charge it to like 255 miles? What use is that? Well, just chill if you feel that way. Don't attack me in the comment section. There's a few caveats to this. And that is that, number one, you can charge it all the way up. It's fine. The issue is that number of recharge cycles on a lithium battery, if you charge it to 100% and discharge it down till it's nearly dead, and do that every day, within several hundred of those charges, say 400 to maybe 1,000 of those cycles, you will begin to notice increased battery degradation. You won't ruin it immediately, but it's a little harder on the battery. So if you don't need 325 miles of range that day, don't charge all the way. And it's not something you need to stress over. For me, I just leave my charge point set at 80%, and once every 2 or 3 weeks, I change it. But otherwise, I get up, it's at 80%. I almost never need more than that, but I have charged it fully. If I'm going on an out-of-state trip, I charge it fully. So or I'll charge it to 95% or whatever. Because if you charge to 100%, your electric regen, when you let off the accelerator pedal, doesn't work because the battery's fully charged, so there's no space in the battery to push more electrons in, so the car drives differently. If you let off, it'll just coast, it won't slow down. So a little bit of an issue there. So if I'm going to charge it all the way up, I'll typically charge it to 95%, just so I've got some brake regen available. But you just don't want to do it every single day all the time, because yeah, it's a 1,100 pound battery pack. It's not cheap. So let's take care of it. In the same way, if a manufacturer tells you that a given vehicle has whatever, an 8,000 pound towing capacity, it does. That doesn't mean you hook an 8,000 pound ski boat to the back and drive it every day, all day, towing 8,000 pounds. It's got the capacity for it. But if you do that every day, all day, you're gonna wear the car out more quickly, and that's an analogous for charging, what it's like to charge an electric car. It will charge all the way, and it's fine to do it, but just daily, you don't want to do it. So anyway, I beat that horse to death. Another question that was asked is tire wear. So my 20-inch tires. Right now I'm at 40,000 miles, and I've got about 15,000 miles on the factory tires, and 25,000 miles on my aftermarket wheels and tires. The aftermarket 20s, my rears are about 2/3 worn. The fronts still have a lot of tread depth, but they were beginning to feather. And being that I have a square setup, wider rear tires than front, I couldn't rotate them normally. Now you can flip left to right side. I've heard people say, don't do it, it's the wrong thing to do. You know what, I've talked with tire people, and they're like, if you have tire tread feathering, flipping left to right will equalize a bit of that. So, and I never did flip them, so I ended up with tread feathering, so I was getting some droning sound out of the tires. It wasn't bad, but it was there. So I would say the wear on the aftermarket tires is fine. They're Michelin Pilot Sport AS3 Plus is what I was using. The stock wheels and tires, which I have back on the car now for efficiency testing, these have about 15,000 miles on them, and I would say they are, the rears, being that my car is rear-wheel drive, the rears wear a little bit faster than the fronts, and I never did rotate them. They've rotated now since I put them back on, and I would say they're at about 40 or 50% wear, probably less than 50, 40% wear. So in 15,000 miles. So I'd say they're good for 40,000 miles. I've heard a couple Model 3 owners say that they already replaced theirs. I don't know what their driving style is. I hypermile this more than I'm flooring it. So, and I air my tires up to 50 PSI. They're at 49 PSI. One's at 50. Right now, so they're roughly 50 PSI most of the time. Let's see here. What other questions? Wear on the seats. The driver's seat, zero signs of wear whatsoever. The steering wheel is a little bit shiny at the top, but not bad. It's wearing very well. I don't notice wear anywhere else in the car whatsoever. The question was asked, if I could today buy a Performance 3 or this, would I buy a Performance 3? Well, there was a time that I would have said, I'd buy the Performance 3, for sure. Well, that was right after I got the car, and then the all-wheel drive became available, and the Performance car became available. It was one of those feature envy things. You know, I was, oh, my car isn't the latest anymore, and I do like acceleration, admittedly. However, I'm not 100% sure I would get the Performance 3 today for a couple of reasons. One, I mean, the expense is really high on that car. Well, I think it's worth it, but it's a lot higher than this car. Item number two, and this is probably the more important one, since I drive a lot for work, range is everything for me, and the rear-wheel drive Model 3 is the longest range car. And it's not, the Performance car doesn't have less range just because you're flooring it. If you poll people that own them, and trust me, a lot of my viewers own them, and I've been in individual communication with quite a few of them, the range on the Performance car is far less than the non-Performance cars, and the rear-wheel drive like mine has better range than the non-Performance all-wheel drive car. Now, I know the Model S isn't necessarily that way. The all-wheel drive Model S has better range than the rear-wheel drive because they can bias the drive to the smaller front motor or whatever. For whatever reason, that doesn't play out the same way with the Model 3. So I happen to have the longest range Model 3 in existence available is this configuration, long-range battery, rear-wheel drive. And I've been told by a number of the Performance 3 owners that even if they're careful driving it, their range is somewhere in the 260 to 280 miles on a charge. Whereas with this, if I drive it carefully, it's not the 325 miles of range that Tesla rates. It's 350 to 360 miles if I'm careful with it around town. But for sure, the 325 miles of range it's rated for is easy to hit with this car. And since I drive a lot, again, range and efficiency is very important. So, so for those reasons, cost and range, also, since I carry a lot of equipment and parts and stuff in my car, I can't really be flooring a car with that much acceleration with all my equipment in it. I'd have to take it all out and just enjoy it on the weekends. Now, part of me would like to do that. It would be fun to, on the weekends, empty the car out, charge it up high, and go out hunting for Mustang GT and Corvette owners that think they own the road and blow them away with my car. But I also live in an area that's not really a thing. In fact, should I end up with the Roadster, which I probably will, I'm kind of at a loss as to where I'm ever going to, exploit any of its performance at all, because there's just, in my area, fast cars. I mean, it's the stoplight Grand Prix, accelerate, brake, accelerate, brake, accelerate, brake. I mean, there's really not open roads in that. I need to take a fast car to different areas to really use it well. So another question was asked about insurance expense. Initially, I was quoted $123 a month full coverage through my insurance, which I use American Family Insurance. I have no points against my license, no tickets or accidents or anything like that. I'm 47 years old, married. My life insurance is through them. I have my personal house, my rental house, both insured through them. My business insurance, 4 vehicles, but they quoted me I think it was $120 something a month anyway. And so I complained about it, and I said, that's just too much. And they said, it's a $55,000 car. And there weren't any Model 3s in the system. They actually had to sort of custom write me a policy based on policies that they had in California at the time. So I think it would be cheaper now because there's a bunch of Model 3s in the system, but there weren't at the time. So eventually what we ended up doing is they moved me from an individual vehicle policy plan to a group or a pool or a fleet or whatever policy where I pay one rate for all the cars combined. And ironically, that one rate for all the cars combined was $60 less than I was paying before I got the Model 3. So adding this car to the fleet, once I negotiated, actually saved me $60 a month. But I could have saved had I just done the fleet policy thing ahead of time. But so that answers that question. Let's see here. Would I have done anything differently? That's a good question. I don't know that I would. I think, though, part of me loving this car as much as I do is just purely related to I'm familiar with it. I'm comfortable with it. I've been in it for 40,000 miles over a year's time. On average, I stare at the windshield 5 hours a day. So part of it is familiarity. I'm glad I got white. White is not a very common color. When I picked up my car, I said, I'm VIN number 9,300 and something, but I know you guys are delivering VIN like 20,000 at the time. I said, why is my car a lower VIN? And they said, no one's buying white. Now, it might be different in other states, but at least here in Illinois, the sales guy said, I don't think I've seen a single white car through here. He said, I see blue, I've seen a couple red, a bunch of the midnight silver. When you drive around in our area and you pass Model 3s, last night my wife and I were on our way out to dinner. There were 2 midnight silver Model 3s parked nose to nose in a parking lot. I mean, that's the color that people get out here. And so which I actually kind of like midnight silver, by the way. But I got white because it's a neutral color. It's for my business. It doesn't show dirt as readily as darker glossy colors like, you know, black or blue or even red will show dirt and grime more than white does. So white and silver hide grime. My last car was silver, so I wanted to get white this time. Oh, let me think here. What else? I would say the longer I own the car, the more I like it. And part of that is the software updates. The car literally gets better every month or whenever they send an update. I don't think there's a single software update that they've sent that I haven't made use of. I'm really looking forward to Advanced Summon. And if it really comes true, their RC car feature of being able to kind of move the car around by summon and with steering and everything, that would be, it would be a neat party trick if nothing else. But anyway, let me think here. What else? One major thing, I really wish this car had a hatchback. So I would say if I'm going to complain about anything, it's going to be, I don't like a car with a trunk. I prefer, when you have a fastback car like this, it should have a hatchback. I feel the same way about our Civic. It's a fastback, but it's got a trunk. I mean, obviously not a deal breaker for me with either car because I bought them both, but it is irritating. I own two fastback cars, both have trunks and not hatches. And so I would prefer a hatch. But that's mainly because I use this car for work, so I'm in and out of the trunk. My rear trunk is completely full. I mean, completely full, and so is the front trunk. And then my toolbox is sitting on the back seat, and there's a couple of loose boxes back there. So a hatchback would be nice. Oh, let me think here. What else? So the question was asked, how much do I pay per month in electricity? Well, you can do the math, but let's see here. In the time I've owned the car, the car has been charged 9,270 kilowatt hours. And now some of those have been supercharging, but not much. That was another question. I'll answer the supercharging question, I guess, first. I have supercharged about a dozen times in the car. That's it. So, but anyway, so 9,270 kilowatt hours. So let's call it 9,000 kilowatt hours that I've charged at home. So in 1 year, I've had 9,000 kilowatt hours. And electricity is 15 cents per kilowatt hour in my area with all taxes and fees, everything combined. I pay 15 cents per kilowatt hour out of pocket. So 9,000 kilowatt hours of charging out of pocket. So what? Let's call it basically like $1,000 for a year of charging or whatever. So less than $100 a month to charge the car. Now, my Ford C-Max Hybrid, I was spending $270 a month or so in gas. Although that car was that was a more expensive car than I normally would use. Typically, before that I was using like Saturns and Toyota Camrys, those kind of cars, and those cars were in the $500 or so a month gas expense range. And then before that, I had a minivan, and the minivan, that was when gas cost a little bit more than it does now, but I was spending over $700 a month in gas on a four-cylinder Dodge minivan. So between my gas and insurance and whatnot, I had established a $900 per month vehicle budget for my business, and that budget is kind of stuck. So I moved from that van to, I had a couple of other cars, a used Camry and whatever, and for what I was paying in insurance and maintenance and gas for that car was about $900 a month. I got my Ford C-Max Hybrid. My car payment was $500, like $503 a month, plus $270 a month in gas, plus insurance was just under $900 a month. This car, my car payment is $772 per month. Again, my insurance, I actually saved money getting this car, about $60 a month in budgetary switching around, but it's a budgetary line item reduction. So this car has been about $700 a month plus electricity costs. So we'll figure high, and we'll call it $100 a month electricity. So $800 a month for car payment and electricity is $100 a month below my $900 per month business budget for this vehicle. And so there's some numbers for you. Is it convenient or inconvenient to use this thing for work? You know, it's convenient in that it's comfortable, the technology and all that suits my business very, very well. I would prefer a hatch. It's a little inconvenient sometimes to fit larger boxes in here, but nothing's perfect, and I've never had a day I couldn't use this thing for work. Oh, the comment was made that battery degradation is non-linear, and that's true. In my first very long video that I shot, I explained this, but that was a portion that didn't make the cut for just time constraint reasons. So I'll address that in this video. If you look at battery degradation curve, most lithium chemistries follow a similar curve, and actually the Model S, there's a bunch of data points on this. Ben Sullins did a video on it, where typically on a Model S, you're going to see 5% battery degradation, or 5% internal battery capacity loss for the first 50,000 miles. And then it tapers to just a couple percent loss over the next 100 or so thousand miles after that. And so there's a loss and then it tapers. And that's pretty typical, that curve. I've seen that with my electric bikes and other electric devices. So in my case, I'm at 2% to maybe 3% at worst, but it's probably a legit 2% battery capacity loss in 40,000 miles, which is very, very good. You know, that's very low numbers. I can definitely live with that. And in fact, the bulk of my battery degradation was seen within the first 20,000 miles. One other comment or question was asked about the current rating of these cars. So my car, when I bought it, was rated at 310 miles of range. With a software update, it is now rated at 325 miles of range, same as all the new cars. And what they did, you saw a 5%, everyone was given a 5% performance boost. You also, with that, see roughly 5% efficiency improvement, and that 5% efficiency improvement ups the range from 310 miles to 325. And I know the numbers don't meet exactly, but you get the gist there. So when I bought the car, it was rated at 310 miles of range, but I only ever saw 308. So I was already about 0.75% or so down from rated range to what my car's actual capacity was. So you shift that to a 325 mile range scenario, and I should be not 325, but more like 321, 322, something like that. And yet I'm actually seeing 315 to 317. So I'm about a 2% actual true internal capacity loss. But it's hard to know because, again, my car's been re-rated. But I would call it a 2 to 2.5% internal capacity loss. So anyway, I think that's it. I'll probably do another video to answer even more questions, but I wanted to cut this off before it gets too long. So I hope that answers your questions. Again, my referral link will be in the description below, and I'm more than happy to answer whatever questions I can for you guys. So you guys have a wonderful day. Take it easy now. Bye-bye. Can't believe people watch this.